My name's Philippe. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in what architecture can tell us about our lifestyles. I'll take you to explore some of the most remarkable habitats on the planet in order to discover their meaning and to share their riches. With its 7 million inhabitants, Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam, is one of Southeast Asia's most vibrant and booming cities. With its shady avenues, its lakes, and its old shopping district, Hanoi's urban landscape reflects a blend of different eras. Yet, it has managed to retain its identity. Hanoi is located in the northern part of the country, in the Tonkin region of the Red River Delta. To get a better idea of its treasures, diversity, and in particular, its singularity, I set out to explore its tunnel houses. These amazing dwellings are located in the heart of the Old Quarter. Combining trade activity and family life within the same space, they're the symbol of the centuries-old values of Vietnamese society. The unique feature of these houses is their narrowness. Buildings with facades measuring 3 to 5 meters wide and with a depth of between 10 to 20 meters, sometimes 5 stories high. How are these apparently spatially constrained dwellings inhabited and occupied? Tuan, 34, is a jeweler. His family has lived in a tunnel house for 4 generations in the old shopping district known as 36th Street. Tuan?
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Very well.
Thank you for welcoming me into your home. Is this your workshop here?
Yes, it's both my home and my workplace. The front part is the entrance area and also the workshop.
Is this the width of the room? It can't be more than 2 meters wide.
It's a bit narrow, yes, but it's very long. The length enables us to divide the space up into different private areas.
Hello.
This is my grandmother and my aunt. This is Philippe, a French friend.
Pleased to meet you.
And that's my baby son in bed there. This room is my grandmother's. This is where she sleeps. But it's also a living room and a dining room.
Yes, I noticed that the entrance was both the workshop and the place where you park your scooters. And this is the space where you eat and where you sleep.
In a tunnel house, each room has to be multi-purpose. We need to be able to eat, relax, and sleep in the same space. Be careful. This is our kitchen.
Okay.
That's the bathroom and toilet.
I'll be careful. Ah, so it doesn't just extend backwards, but upwards too. How many floors are there?
My uncles built these 3 extra floors. Our house hasn't always been like it is now. The workshop part at the front already existed, but this back part used to be a flat roof. They used to dry the washing on it. But my uncles got married and they needed extra rooms. So after they built them, they kept this space as a light shaft. You see up there? These openings provide ventilation for the rooms.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen, all for free. No subscription required.
As in most tunnel houses, the kitchen used to be an open courtyard. But in order to gain space, the family built on it. Today, only the staircase enables air and light to penetrate inside the house. Not a very comfortable situation when you have 7 people living in a space that's only 2.4 meters wide and 22 meters long. Tuan's house is like a family tree. The old people are at the bottom, while the younger ones gravitate upwards. Each generation gains a floor.
I'll show you my room. Mind your head, the space is a bit cramped here. You have to be very careful. That used to be my room when I was little.
Ah, okay.
After I got married, we built this part as a sort of private apartment. And this is my domain now. It used to be the terrace. With a drying area, a garden, an aviary. After I got married, it became my bedroom so that I could have my own private space without having to leave the family.
In order to understand how tunnel houses developed, we need to understand the structure of the Vietnamese family system where several generations live under the same roof.
Philippe, you need to understand that the tunnel house is an age-old tradition here. Like a living entity, it needs to grow. My children and I, we are the 4th generation. The house has to adapt just as we do. Our tradition is founded on the principle that the children have to take care of their parents. We have to live together from generation to generation. So we stay together in the tunnel house and modernize it by adding floors.
As I stroll through the corridor of 36 streets, I realize that the tunnel houses aren't necessarily inhabited by a single family. Many of them have been divided up into lots in order to house a growing population. It's as if the city had been cut up into thin slices, then into small pieces, with the inhabitants attempting to make the most out of the little they have. For the inhabitants of these tunnel houses, air and light are a real luxury. By way of patios and garden terraces, they attempt to escape the constraints of these confined spaces. Through the country's colonial past and the dark years of communism, these houses have survived the test of time. Despite their limitations, they carry the memory and identity of this city and its turbulent history. Trinh Duc Chien, a photographer and history enthusiast, has been observing Hanoi's evolution for a number of years. With his help, I'd like to understand the origin of these tunnel houses and the manner in which they've shaped the heart of the city.
Hanoi was originally a royal citadel built by an emperor. But how do you live in a citadel? The king and mandarins needed to feed and clothe themselves. That's how the tea, the market, came into existence. Craftsmen such as tailors, blacksmiths, cooks, etc., set up shop on the streets, offering their services to the inhabitants of the citadel, but also to the general population who lived on the outside.
So in the beginning, a lot of Hanoi's inhabitants were country people who moved to the town. What did they do here?
When they arrived in Hanoi, the craftsmen from the countryside grouped together according to their village of origin. They all practiced the same craft. So you'll find quarters dedicated to one particular craft, utensil repairing, carpentry, etc. The local farmers satisfied the food needs of both the royal court and the general population. And that's how the city was born. You have the market, the streets, and each street is occupied by a guild that corresponds to a given craft.
The old quarter has evolved, but its spirit has remained the same for centuries. Trade activity and family life are closely linked. Just as in the past, the street names reflect the unique trade that's carried on there. Basket Street, Money Street, Fabric Street, etc.
Here we're in Pharmacist Street, in the central trade district in the very heart of Hanoi. We Vietnamese like to live in this type of quarter, in old-style streets like this. It's the same with our choice of medicine. We prefer our traditional medicinal plants that are suited to our metabolism. This quarter is like a slice of life in old Hanoi.
I see, but how do you explain the narrowness of the storefronts?
It's because when the people came here from the countryside, they divided up the plots of land on both sides of the street into very small lots, on which they built temporary shacks. As their business developed, they built more solid buildings. These lots are 2 or 3 meters wide, 4 meters maximum, but their length is almost limitless. There's a Vietnamese proverb which says, when you're inside a watermelon, you curl up in a ball. When you're inside a squash, you stretch out. That's exactly how it is with tunnel houses. At the front is the shop. At the back, stretching out lengthwise, are the living quarters, the light shaft, the kitchen, the toilets, etc. The formula is unchangeable.
You've been photographing Hanoi for a long time. Have you seen any changes in these tunnel houses?
Of course, the city's evolving and growing, but this old quarter, which is its soul, needs to stay the same. Each house preserves the spirit of the family, the ancestors, childhood memories. This explains why people don't like to transform them. Of course, we'll add modern conveniences such as air conditioning, modern sanitation facilities, etc., but we remain very attached to tradition, to everything that reminds us of our ancestors. Hanoi's old buildings are modest in size, but they house the soul of the city, the soul of the historic capital of the city of Dragon taking flight.
A little farther along the street, Trinh Duc Chien introduces me to his friend, Tong. It's here?
This is Philippe.
Hello, pleased to meet you.
Philippe, this is the owner of the pharmacy.
Welcome. Come inside my house.
Which way? There? Wow. It's deep, isn't it? It stretches back a long way. This corridor is incredibly narrow. And with no windows? What's in there? What's this?
That's our storeroom.
Okay. Ah, yes, everything's here. All the herbs and plants. Hello. Amazing. And it continues on. And there's a second corridor here. It just goes on forever. Are we still in the same house here?
Yes, we're still alongside the house. It has a total length of 100 meters.
Incredible. We're passing through the entire block.
We've arrived. Please, after you.
Ah, yes. It's here. It's really surprising how narrow this house is.
It's 3 meters 50 wide.
Okay.
On each floor, I have 2 rooms with a total surface area of 50 square meters. Please, go on in.
What's in here? Great. Fantastic.
This is the terrace.
What a fantastic view.
You have a view over the whole neighborhood.
Is this garden terrace a way of recreating the courtyards that used to exist in the early tunnel houses?
It's a tunnel house, but as you can see, there's light, it has ventilation, and it is calm. I'm very happy with it. It's very pleasant.
These tunnel houses that appear to me to be very constrained dwellings in fact reflect the high social status of their owners. Over time, their value has increased considerably. Today, the price per square meter varies between $30,000 and $50,000. These houses represent both social status and success. Lee Ton-ki, a young architect, designed his home based on a modern reinterpretation of the tunnel house. Ki, hello, it's Philippe. May I come in?
Hi, Philippe.
Hi, how are you?
Very good.
Wow, what a great place you have. In fact, you've created a sort of contemporary tunnel house.
Exactly. When I designed the plans, I wanted to break away from the traditional model of the tunnel house. I wanted to have a tree inside. My main objective when designing this house was the light.
By letting light into his house, Lee Ton-ki has transformed this space into both a living and leisure area. Ah, great.
This is where I work, read, and play music sometimes. It's great to wake up and have natural light. Sometimes I don't even need to go outside. I can work up here and then go down to the first floor and have coffee or breakfast, then come back up here and continue working.
You renovate and build tunnel houses. How do you see the evolution and future of this type of house?
It's very difficult to develop a sector of tunnel houses. The tunnel house doesn't satisfy the needs of modern life. It's a place made solely for basic things: sleeping, eating, watching TV. In most people's minds, it's a place for doing trade and business. And for this, the tunnel house is perfect and has been for generations. This is how the old quarter of Hanoi was born and still continues to exist today.
While the enduring nature of the tunnel houses halts urban development in the old quarter, it nonetheless gives it its vitality. It blurs the line between the street and the home, as if the street were the natural extension of the domestic space. It's not easy to cross. You just have to go, in fact. For urban planner Le Coq-Un, it's precisely this porous boundary between private and public life, between home and trade activity, that distinguishes Hanoi as a city. What I particularly like about this place is seeing all these different trade activities spread out on the pavement like this.
Yes, in fact, the activities you see on the pavement are an extension of the activities inside the house. You have the inhabitants who need more workspace for their activity, and so extend out onto the pavement. And you have other tradesmen who come here from the countryside, from elsewhere, and who want to set up shop here.
Yes, you can see that all the available space is taken over. You have the shops, you have people cooking vegetables here, you have all these scooters too.
Exactly.
Everyone mixes together.
Yes, everyone mixes together.
And you don't actually walk on the pavement, you walk in the middle of the street.
Yes, but it all works well together.
When I first arrived here, I said to myself, I'll never be able to walk in the streets with all these scooters everywhere. But in fact, after half an hour, you manage to get around easily without feeling threatened. You're right in the middle of the traffic, and in fact, there's no problem.
Yes, there's no problem. And this becomes the particular picture we have of Hanoi, the typical image of Hanoi.
These tunnel houses have created a city model that's very compact and mixed, in fact.
Exactly. Hanoi's urban life, with its social and functional diversity, its mixture of architectural styles, is what makes up Hanoi's charm.
Yes, it's funny seeing those two buildings side by side like that.
Yes.
The juxtaposition of eras and styles.
Yes.
It's wonderful, and the height too. What I find really incredible here is the permanent intermingling of everything. There are power lines everywhere, scooters, people, and all this creates a particular atmosphere. And the noise level's quite impressive too.
That's right. At first sight, you just see a kind of disorder, urban disorder, but it functions very well, in fact. All these different things all mixed together manage to function very well.
For me, that's what urban life is. I mean, when you arrive here, it all looks very chaotic, but then you soon realize there's a form of self-regulation.
Exactly.
And all these things work very well together.
It's dynamic.
That's right. The effervescent activity of Hanoi city center doesn't stop at nightfall. Between the scooters, in front of the houses, the pavements are covered with a multitude of small stands. Hey, Tuan.
Oh, hi.
How are you?
What a surprise.
Ah, great.
I'm selling bun bao, steamed buns, a traditional Vietnamese dish. Sit down here.
Okay.
This is an extra job I have outside my main work as a jeweler. This evening work brings me in a little extra income.
So you sell these small buns out here just in front of your house?
In fact, the pavement doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the state. But as we're short of space, we're forced to come out onto the pavement just in front of the shop.
So do you manage to sell many of your little buns?
Would you like to try and sell some?
Okay. Can you show me what to do?
Well, first of all, stand here. Before selling, you need to know the menu.
Okay. Baudelaire said that the form of a city changes more quickly than the human heart. Hanoi's tunnel houses prove the opposite. Not out of a simple desire for preservation, but because they ensure family cohesion and the stability of their trade activities. Ban bao! Ban bao! They're the best in town! It's thanks to these tunnel houses that this old quarter still retains all its flavor and vitality. My name's Philippe. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in what architecture can tell us about our lifestyles. I'll take you to explore some of the most remarkable habitats on the planet in order to discover their meaning and to share their riches. I'm in Iran, in the lunar-like landscape of Mount Sahan, whose peak is 3,500 meters above sea level. In the heart of this little-known volcanic region, still covered by a dusting of snow in early spring, is the village of Candovan. It's located in the Azerbaijan region, about 600 kilometers northwest of the country's capital, Tehran. Volcanic eruptions occurring a million years ago created cones of rock that were carved out and made suitable for habitation. These types of dwellings, known as Troglodyte homes, are the oldest in the world. They've existed since prehistoric times. Candovan is the only troglodyte village that's still inhabited today. What is life like in this type of house? And what does it mean to live inside the rock face, in the heart of the mountains? 2,300 meters above sea level, in the breathtaking landscape overlooking Kandovan, Ahad, a storekeeper who has lived here his entire life, shows me his village. Ahad, hello. We're up very high.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Kandovan.
Thank you. It's gorgeous. I understand why we came all the way up here.
Yes, it is.
What I find amazing is that from up here, the village blends in completely. It looks like part of the mountains.
That's right. From up here, you can't tell it's a village because the doors and windows are built from below.
How many houses are there in Candovan?
There are about 1,000 cone-shaped houses inside the rock face and about 1,000 inhabitants. The rock houses are mostly residential, but some are used to shelter sheep or as warehouses. Our ancestors settled here over 1,500 years ago. They carved out the rock face with their pickaxes and then they moved in.
What was it that motivated them to settle here, in the middle of the mountains, right inside the rock itself?
They settled inside the rock face for two reasons. First, to protect themselves from robbers and thieves. They carved out the rock and moved inside, but also because of the climate. Since we get rain and snow here, we have fertile land for agriculture and beekeeping. The people who live here are farmers. We have wheat fields, orchards, hazelnut trees, plum trees, barley. And there's also enough water to raise livestock. I was born and raised in this village. My own house is right over there. I'll show you.
The architecture is organic. The houses follow the shapes of nature, and they seem to have sprung right from the ground. The gently pointed cones look like huge termite mounds, where man has come to seek shelter. It is said that the first inhabitants were villagers fleeing the Mongolian armies nearly 800 years ago. It's steep. Mere shelters at first, they have become real homes over time. The village is made up of rocks, with openings for small windows and doors, and steep, winding alleys. Carved into the rock face, the ochre houses blend in harmoniously with their surroundings. People here make a living from agriculture, raising livestock, or selling locally made products.
And this is where I work. I sell medicinal plants.
Okay.
All these plants come from this region.
I see some saffron here.
Yes.
It's beautiful. What is this?
It's a plant called gole avzaben. It's good for stress. It's a sedative.
Ah, it's beautiful. And the little balls here, what are they?
It's kashk, curds. It's full of calcium. My house is up there.
Right there, okay. Can we go visit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here is my home.
This one here?
Yes, it's carved out of the rock. Downstairs is the barn where the sheep are kept, the livestock. Here are the steps to enter the house. And here's the barn. Here it is. We carved out a place to shelter the sheep below the house.
It's very deep. I wouldn't have expected it to be so deep.
Yes. It's very spacious. It can contain several herds. It's also very pleasant. The temperature stays warm. The animals warm the space with their body heat.
This stone is beautiful. Is it a kind of volcanic rock?
Yes, it is. It consists of several elements: ash, rocks, sand. They came together and formed these conical shapes. We call this ancient rock igneous rock. It's thousands of years old.
Yes, it's tough. It's a rock that is sturdy, but brittle at the same time. That's why it can be hollowed out.
Yes, you're right. Our ancestors understood that these rocks could be carved out for habitation, bit by bit, while remaining intact and undamaged on the outside. They simply hollowed out the inside.
Tough is both strong and fragile. Just like human skin, it needs to breathe. and it deteriorates if it's not maintained regularly. On this rock, you can see the marks left from the flow of lava, a reminder of the passage of time.
Philippe, now I'll show you the inside of my house. It's very interesting.
I love the stairs.
This way. You see, we have two rooms. One that serves as a stockroom for the store, and the main room where we live.
So everything's here. Everything takes place in this room.
Yes, we have a stove, a furnace, a refrigerator,
Yes?
a closet, and here are the mattresses. The television is there,
Oh, I hadn't seen it.
and the bathroom is outside.
Here we are inside the cone of volcanic rock. I suppose it took a long time to carve this out.
It took 4 months to carve out this house. 3 people worked on it, and since the rock is so dense, there were a lot of stones to remove. When you carve out 1 or 2 meters of rock, you need several donkeys and a truck to remove it all. But the good thing about this rock is that you can work with it. You can add recesses to the wall,
Yes?
a place to store the mattresses, or create load-bearing walls. With patience and the right techniques, you can adjust the space to suit your needs.
This is the first time I've been in a home like this that's really deep inside of a rock. I feel like I'm protected by a huge mass of stone.
We feel safe here. Since we're right in the center of the rock, it's very sturdy. It can withstand natural disasters, earthquakes.
Another advantage is the temperature in here.
The temperature remains constant in these houses built in the rocks. For example, in winter, it might snow 1.5 meters. The roads are all blocked up. The temperature outside can drop to -10 or -20 degrees Celsius. But inside remains pleasant. Or in the summer, when it's very hot and hard to go outside. Here, it stays cool. No need for a fan. The temperature stays the same all year round.
And once these houses have been carved out, do they need a lot of maintenance?
This type of housing is very sturdy when it's well carved. For example, the ceiling above us is 4 meters thick, so the water can't seep through.
Oh yes, that's huge.
But over here, the distance between the wall and the outside is less than 1 meter.
Yes?
That's why the water seeps in. See the water stains here?
Yes, I can see the moisture on the wall here, and the plaster is crumbling a bit. So what can you do to prevent this?
Actually, it doesn't really damage the wall. In springtime, the moisture infiltrates the wall, but in summer, when the sun beats down, the wall dries out and becomes white again. In any case, the wall is sturdy and humidity won't damage it. Philippe, for you, it might seem difficult to live in this type of house, but we belong to the mountain. We were born in these houses, and we love this kind of housing. We have always lived in the mountains, and we're very attached to our region.
Ahad lives in harmony with the mountains, like his fellow villagers. Yet, life is harsh here. The climate can sometimes be extreme, and the isolation as well. But the residents of Kandovan have learned to be self-sufficient and to adapt to the rhythm of the seasons. They find peace in the way of life here. Michael Nazari, a professor at the University of Tabriz, located 60 kilometers away, is specialized in Kandovan's history and architecture. He explains how the houses are organized in the village.
Traditionally, the lower floors of the houses served as a barn for the animals. The kitchen and living quarters were on the upper floor. And if the family was wealthy, they lived on several levels. You can see that they've retained the former structure. They've kept the opening that we see here. It was only later that windows were added. They weren't here before. The exterior facade was closed with a single entrance for each home and an entrance for the barn. You can see the animals inside.
We can see how this home has changed over the years. There's a plastic door, a small fireplace, an air duct. But these are really the only elements that date the home. Without them, it would seem a bit timeless.
700 years ago, electricity didn't exist. So when they started adding electricity to the village, other adjustments were necessary. For example, these lights that we can see on the outside of the home, or the fireplace, it didn't exist in this form back then. These steps were also added later. In the beginning, they would carve out the rock to reach the top floors without adding additional stone. Here's the terrace, which was added to the home later. It wasn't like this before. When the weather is nice, people sit outside here on a carpet and enjoy the scenery. These rooms are on the second floor, but if you count from the bottom, they are on the third level of the rock. Let's go inside.
Okay.
Here you can see the marks of the pickaxe on the walls, each corresponding to a piece of rock that was removed.
I find these irregular and imperfect walls very meaningful because they remind us that this house was built by human hands. And when we see all these pickaxe marks on the walls, they tell a story about the time and energy it took to build a room like this.
The name of this village is Kandovan. The root words are Kandovan, which means to carve out the walls with so much difficulty that you pay for it with your life. It's very difficult. It's a very long process. But when the first settlers came to carve out the rocks, it was to save their lives. Otherwise, you wouldn't go to so much trouble to build a house.
For me, architecture is really the art of building. You construct the walls, the roof, but you always bring in the material. And here the situation is entirely different, because you have to dig into the rock and take matter away. If the housing in Candovan is very permanent, the domestic spaces remain adjustable. To enlarge them, just continue carving out the walls.
You see here, they're carving out the rock to expand the space.
The less material, the greater the volume.
You can see how skilled they are at carving the rock, how good their technique is. If we were to try ourselves, we wouldn't be able to carve out the space as well. You can take the pickaxe and give it a try if you want. Let's see if you are able to remove even one small piece of stone.
It's so heavy.
Go on, hit it hard. It's very difficult.
It's very hard work. Well, good luck with that. Ahad and his brother Sadri invite me to share a meal with the village chief. A sign of hospitality that I find very touching. The meeting is all male, as is the custom here. Delicious. What is this dish called?
It is called abgusht.
Abgusht.
We eat this dish once or twice a day. It's made of chickpeas, meat, potatoes, and we also add some tomatoes. This is mutton from the sheep that we raise.
Mutton, potatoes, tomatoes. I see you've all squashed your meals with a pestle, right? Okay. And you crush it like this. It's great. Okay, I'm mixing it. Is this fermented milk?
This is douai. It's a yogurt made from sheep's milk. It makes you strong like the village chief.
Well, I need some more abagusht. I'm really happy to have discovered your village. This is the first time I've been inside this type of house. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
You're welcome here anytime. We're very glad you came. I hope you come back.
It's amazing to see that after thousands of years, there are still people living in Kandovan, and that the village continues to thrive.
Our homes are sturdy, so we feel safe inside them, and we want to stay there. When we spend a day in the city, we can't wait to return to our village. It's what we know, and we are happy here.
Walking through the village, I saw that the houses are all clustered together, a bit like a beehive.
Yes, they follow the shape of the volcanic mountains. That's actually why they're so sturdy, because they're juxtaposed together.
I would think that this spatial organization, where everything is linked together, leads to a strong bond between the villagers.
Yes, that's true. We're like a big family. Our homes are linked together. They often share communal access, and this creates a bond between us. It connects us. This proximity has contributed to a sense of attachment. We share everything together, whether it's moments of joy, like weddings, or moments of mourning. Our houses are close to each other, and our hearts are too.
As I was leaving Candovan, I thought about the inhabitants of the village. Facing harsh weather conditions and the threat of violence, they were able to build a home in the rock face by taking away rather than adding. Instead of fleeing, they created a refuge by adopting a simple way of life. They have made an art of modest living, which has endured for nearly a millennium and will continue for a long time, as long as the people of Candovan continue to enjoy living in these arid mountains. Thank you.